Hi folks, welcome to Pearceptive. It's been about a week and a half about since my last video, but I wanted to do another video on the book of questions. So I've made a PowerPoint, and hopefully it's a wee bit better and a wee bit more digestible than the last one. That was a silly mistake. Clearly, I haven't worked out this software yet. Also got a haircut, so now that lockdown's lifting, so I feel a lot more presentable. So let me just click over and load up my presentation, and hopefully this works. We'll see. We'll see at the end, I guess. So yeah, so this is the Book of Questions, question 2 by my channel name. So the question this week was actually quite difficult. I struggled with it quite a lot. I had to kind of tease out exactly what I wanted to get from it, I guess, which was good. It made me think about something that didn't at face value seem important, but I feel like it did then ask an interesting question. So it should be good. Take a drink of the good stuff. Also, apologies if you hear traffic. Once again, I live by a main road, so it's gonna be a wee bit busy for lunchtime, I guess. So, this week's question is, what would you do if your 6-year-old daughter's favourite toy, a talking doll, started trying to convince her that she needed a new friend, the next doll in the company line? So as you can tell, it's quite a difficult one. And when I look at these questions, I tend to try and make them go from like micro to macro. Look at the small and then look at the bigger implications of such a question. Um, so with this one, it was a wee bit harder to tease out, and trying to figure out exactly what I wanted to say took a lot more reflection. Hence why it took me a bit longer to get this one out. But I had to really kind of figure out what is being asked from this question, and I felt it had three different aspects to it that I could tie into the question. Um, Maybe answer the question indirectly, I guess. And these kind of integral parts of the question is in relation to psychology, so child psychology and socialization. How you raise your child. Of course, capitalism, the marketing, advertisements, coercion, all that fun stuff, and a wee bit of ethics and, pardon me, morals, and protection against vulnerable groups and stuff like that. So yeah, I'll just get wired right in. Hopefully, I'll make this video a wee bit shorter than normal. So yeah, child psychology. Why I came up with this is a kind of aspect of the question. A toy socializing with your child uh, has, if it's got sentience, or if it's getting informed somehow by perhaps the company that made it, it has some interesting ramifications to it. Especially because if it's unsupervised, that's quite a spooky situation, right? So that's why I thought the child psychology aspect of it is important. Now, I'm not a psychologist, but I can infer a couple of things from uh, my own studies and stuff like that. So, of course, children are extremely impressionable, and then having someone that has a direct link to your child who perhaps has a unique relationship with your child as being something that it plays with, um, it could be damaging, right? So, no matter what the toy is saying, just having something that has that kind of connection with your child is a bit scary. And of course, socialization, something we all go through to try and integrate us with society. It begins at such a young age, and having a talking toy coerce your child into making an impression, uh, or making an impression on your child, informing their personality and their worldview. That's scary, right? Because I mean, as a parent, you would believe that would be your job, or you believe it was the job of the state in some cases, or education, to inform your child. But in this case, you're allowing a corporation to do it. I'll go more into the capitalism part later. But also, I just thought I would consider a few considerations, I guess. Questions about how to raise your child and what is the purpose. You know, like the question isn't directly asking this, but this is what I kind of inferred from it. So when it comes to raising children, you've really got one of two options, right? Technically, you can raise them to be as conformist as possible, right? So you can raise them to integrate with society as much as possible, accept the norms and values, make them extremely normal, or you can raise them to be critical of society, give them a kind of an appetite for resistance to the way society is, especially if you're unhappy as an adult. That might be important to instill into your kids. But that has the risk of making your child a social outcast, right? So, look, of course, every parent has to have this kind of interplay between the two, where you want your kid to think independently, but you also want them to fit in, right? Because nobody wants to be a social outcast. But with in regards to this toy, you know, this toy is going to make is telling this kid to buy the next doll in the company line almost as a like a coercion tactic, right? So you it is teaching your kid to have some degree of conformity, right? It's almost guilt tripping your kid into doing what a peer wants them to do, and you know, goods, bads, but that is it's quite scary. Also, I wanted to talk about the relationships that are kind of involved in this situation, right? So the relationship with the doll, what kind of relationship would your child have with the product, right? Would there be implications if you moved the doll, if you removed the doll, sorry? Um, of course, kids get really bonded to things, and with the added element of technology here, right, this toy could really make your child latch onto it, right? So removing the toy may have a detrimental effect. You know, it might be teaching all the wrong lessons, right? Trying to remove something that is so part of being that child's life, you know. Pardon, I'm going to take a wee sip. Lovely. So yeah, and also the relationship with you, right? So when it comes to your children, you have obviously such an intimate relationship with your child. So when it comes to, you know, honesty, control, nurture, all these must be considered, and also how your actions regarding the doll will have an impact, right? So you want to tell your doll, perhaps, or tell your child what that doll's purpose is, right? You want to be honest with it, but also you don't want to be the person that constantly removes things that they like or negatively impact their upbringing in such a way, right? So you would have to consider your relationship with the child and your relationship with yourself as well in a kind of way, because you have to decide what you want to do as an adult. So it's that's what I'm saying. This question was quite difficult, but when you dig a little bit, when you dig quite deep, it has some larger implications. Um, of course, capitalism. I've touched on this already, but having a corporation having a corporation have direct access to impressionable children is a scary thought. You know, they can mold their minds as a consumer, or they can make them unfalteringly loyal to a brand. You know, and children are having to engage with like this mode of production. We're in capitalism, whether we like it or not. Uh, Especially at such a younger age, right? As technology advances and we get out in the world a lot more, especially as children. So with this, key social skills haven't really been developed yet, and when it comes to marketing and child psychology and stuff, corporations have paid people a lot of money to figure out how to sell something to someone and how to effectively keep them trapped in that purchase, right? So it's almost predatorial to do that to a child, right? And you know, capitalism's got no moral qualms when it comes to that qualms. Uh, so yeah, and of course, like a toy bought from a corporation may have access to your child, which you know just highlights the coercive nature of the system. Uh, other considerations, the when I mentioned that, right, it did seem quite intimidating, thinking a toy having unfiltered access to your child, right? But these things have already happened. There's precedent for it. Precedent, sorry, English is awful. The idea of capitalism molding the minds of vulnerable groups, it's not new. When you look at the history of toys, Transformers, superhero films, and all that stuff. All of those things are media ploys or corporate ploys to try and sell toys to people. Sell actual goods to people and make a bit of profit. So when you look at that and you look at the previous examples, it's not quite the same as a talking toy telling you that you should buy another one of them, but it's when you have the old Transformers and you want to get the new Transformers, or you see a superhero and they've got a new costume in the new film, you want a toy that looks like that, right? So these have all been specifically designed to sell to children, and it's scary. Of course, you could argue that it's the parent's responsibility to ultimately not let your kid fall for that, but a lot of pressures, even you know, to be a good parent and to make sure that your child isn't socially excluded. Uh, you know, Coercion. Ultimately, it comes into coercion. And then I also mentioned technology, right? So we already have technology from corporations that can be coercive to the youth, right? Apple phones and stuff like that. We already give our children technology, which gives the corporations unfiltered access to their data, but also like the things on it, right? So like YouTube can be very impressionable on people. Like it doesn't have to be such a tangible good, right? It can be like Google can inform the way somebody can think what they think of. It can control the narrative, right? So the the idea of a talking toy telling you to buy another one, especially to a child, isn't new. In fact, it's happening right now. I kind of the last bit was a wee bit harder to kind of put in, but I wanted to kind of speak about the ethics of the situation. It's morally grey to subject children to that degree of unsupervised attention. Excuse me. It's hot today. Uh, Especially from a powerful company, right? There's a power dynamic there, which the child doesn't really have much of a choice in. So you have to be the the mediator in that relationship. And I did already previously mention this, but marketing psychology corrupts the minds of the youth to become consumers more than people. So it's not, the company didn't set out for the toy to make friends with your child. They're setting out to then make a profit, right? So the relationship there is grey at most, um, at least I guess. And that doll may provide companionship for your child. However, like when it comes to like things like surveillance, right, that becomes a huge issue. Like we could go and talk about Foucaultian ethics and stuff like that, or Foucaultian ideas of power. Yeah, but when it comes down to that, a corporation being that intimately involved with your child is quite scary. So, with these three different aspects to the question, um, hopefully this has provided an interesting insight. But I guess I tried to create an argument or an answer, I guess, to the question. So my answer would be remove the doll, but not as a punishment, right? So the doll clearly in this situation shouldn't be allowed near your kid, and this also makes you think as well, like should you really be allowing your children to have technology? Yes, there is a risk of socially excluding your child, right? Because you want them to be integrated with society, you want them to get on the social media sites so they can talk to people in a way that they haven't been able to talk to before. Especially a lot of communication nowadays happens online, right? So there's that, but that I would highlight that it's not a punishment, right? That you'd have to create other avenues for creating these intimate bonds, So it's not a punishment to remove the child, remove the doll. The child hasn't done anything wrong. It's just it kind of leads on to the next part of my answer, to be honest, and it's like just being honest with your child, right? Children tend to be a lot smarter than we give them credit for. We try and dumb things down, but if you've ever met a child, they're the most inquisitive group of people you'll ever meet. They constantly ask questions. They're so interested in the world. So you would just explain clearly, like there is a degree of maybe damaging their innocence a little bit, but you can't afford to get into that system of coercion early, right? So I would be honest with your child as much as possible, and say, it's not a punishment to you. This is just a doll that is deciding to, or this doll is made by a corporation that is just wanting more money. They don't care about you. There's other ways to make a relationship with someone. And I guess that leads to my third point as well. Try and forge a relationship with your child that is a bit less reliant on technology and toys. Nowadays, like my sister and stuff like that, it's been a lot easier nowadays to just give your child like an iPad or give them access to video games or something like that. But I mean, there's plenty of ways to internet. Children have been getting entertained for hundreds of years, without needing technology that much. And there is a time and a place for technology, but it doesn't have to be such a key player in their social development, right? It can be a wee extra, towards the end of their week. And yet life might seem a bit beige if you've not got technology constantly. But nowadays, you tend to have a wee bit more free time, which you can spend with your children. Um, of course, that varies between, but there's ways, there's definite ways, and if I ever do become a father, um, I would like to forge a relationship that isn't so, the medium of that relationship isn't to do with technology. There's no technology involved, because technology is going to continue to increase its influence in the world, and it's going to be harder to separate from that. And once again, technology is good, but um, having a better sense of connection to the natural world, I would feel, is better. And also, like, the relationship that it would be forging with technology, they would be forging with technology, sorry, is being influenced by, once again, a coercive force. So it's trying to get that balance right. And yeah, I guess my answer to the question would be, take the doll away, be honest with your child, and try and forge a relationship less reliant on technology. Um, Honestly, this question was absolutely solid. So hopefully it was okay. I tried to be coherent. It might not have been the best video or whatever, but it really got me thinking about my relationship with a potential child, or my potential uh, daughter, or son, but also things in our life already that already have such a huge impact on our daily lives, like such as technology. So it was actually a really insightful question. I'm looking forward to the next one. I won't surprise it, but the next one should be quite good. And hopefully this has been a wee bit different than what you'd imagine. Yeah, I'm under 20 minutes. Let's go. So yeah, if you've got any questions, just leave them under. Feel free to message me on my different social medias and stuff like that. But yeah, this has been fun. Hopefully that PowerPoint turned out okay. But yeah, hopefully I'll hear from you guys soon, and hopefully the insights I've brought have made you think a little bit as well. So yeah, thank you for watching. Have a lovely day, and I'll see you later. Bye.